The quantum displacement chamber hummed with an otherworldly resonance as Dr. Samira Patel watched the holographic readouts dance before her eyes. After 15 years of research, countless failed attempts, and 3 complete rebuilds of the quantum core, she had finally done it. The small probe hovering in the chamber's center flickered like a mirage in desert heat, then vanished entirely. "Transport successful," announced the facility's AI system. "Target probe has rematerialized at designated coordinates near Lunar Base Alpha." Samira's hands trembled as she pulled up the confirmation data. The probe hadn't just teleported, it had briefly folded space itself, creating what her team called a quantum bridge between 2 points. A journey that would have taken conventional spacecraft hours had happened in mere milliseconds. Dr. Patel. Her assistant, Thomas Reed, burst into the control room, his face pale. "We're picking up massive energy signatures entering the solar system. Dozens of them. The outer defense grid says they're ships. Alien ships." Before Samira could respond, every screen in the facility flickered to life simultaneously. A figure appeared, tall, with iridescent scaled skin and multiple sets of arms. Behind it stood a collection of beings that defied human description, creatures of pure light, crystalline entities, and things that seemed to shift between forms. "People of Earth," the scaled being spoke, its words automatically translated. "I am High Counselor Nix of the Galactic Council. Your recent quantum displacement experiments have triggered an emergency session. You must cease these activities immediately." Samira felt her blood run cold. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for centuries, but not like this. Not as a warning. In the following hours, Earth's major governments scrambled to respond. Samira found herself rushed to United Earth Defense Headquarters in Geneva, where she joined Admiral James Harrison and other key military and scientific leaders. The gathering was tense, with representatives from every major nation watching the alien ships through advanced telescopes. "They're maintaining position just beyond Mars' orbit," Harrison reported, his weathered face grave. "At least 30 vessels, unlike anything we've ever theorized. Some appear to be biological in nature, others, well, our sensors can barely comprehend their composition." "What exactly are they afraid of?" asked Director Sophia Rossi of the European Space Agency. Dr. Patel's breakthrough could revolutionize space travel. Make it safer, more efficient. Samira pulled up her research data on the main display. The quantum displacement drive doesn't just move through space, it temporarily alters space itself. Creates a controlled fold that allows instant travel between 2 points. No conventional propulsion required. A new message arrived from the Council. As Harrison read it aloud, the room fell silent. "Your method of space manipulation is crude and dangerous," the message stated. "It creates ripples in the fabric of reality that attract unwanted attention. There are forces in this universe that guard the fundamental laws of physics. They do not tolerate those who bend these laws too far. Are they threatening us?" Harrison's voice was steel. "No," Samira realized, studying the message's underlying tone. "They're warning us. They're afraid." As if in response to her words, the facility's sensors began screaming. Something massive was appearing at the edge of the solar system, a tear in space itself, darker than the void between stars. The alien ships immediately began moving, taking defensive positions. Through the quantum displacement chamber's specialized sensors, Samira detected energy patterns unlike anything she'd ever seen. The tear in space wasn't random, it was deliberate, calculated. Something was coming to investigate humanity's manipulation of quantum space, and even the Galactic Council's advanced civilizations feared its arrival. "Dr. Patel," Harrison turned to her, his eyes reflecting the emergency lights now flashing throughout the facility. "Your quantum displacement technology, could it be modified for defense?" Samira's mind raced through the possibilities. The aliens clearly knew something they weren't fully sharing. If there were ancient forces that enforced the proper laws of physics, perhaps humanity's crude method of space manipulation could be turned into an advantage. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the ones that worked best. Yes, she answered, already pulling up new simulations. But we'll need to work fast. Whatever's coming through that tear in space, I don't think it's coming to welcome us to the galactic community. As Samira began rapidly modifying her equations, she couldn't help but wonder, had humanity's greatest achievement just become its greatest threat? Or was this the moment when Earth would prove itself ready to join the stars, not by following the established rules, but by daring to break them? Admiral Harriet Chen stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Orbital Defense Station, watching the alien vessels shimmer against the backdrop of stars. After 20 years in United Earth defense, she had prepared for countless scenarios involving first contact. None had involved being told to abandon humanity's greatest technological breakthrough. "The Council representatives are ready, Admiral," announced Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, his reflection appearing in the reinforced glass beside her. "They're waiting in the Quantum Conference Chamber." The Quantum Conference Chamber was another of Dr. Patel's innovations, a room where space itself was slightly folded, allowing real-time communication across vast distances. As Chen entered, she found herself face-to-face with not just High Counselor Nix, but representatives from a dozen advanced civilizations. "Your species continues its quantum displacement experiments despite our warning," Nix stated, their scaled skin shifting colors with barely contained anxiety. "The tear grows larger with each passing hour." "You haven't given us much choice," Chen responded, keeping her voice steady. "You demand we abandon our research without full explanation. That's not how humanity operates." A crystalline being stepped forward, its faceted surface refracting light in impossible patterns. "Perhaps we should show them, Nix. They deserve to know what they face." The air in the chamber shimmered, and a holographic display materialized. It showed a series of worlds, each one thriving with civilization. Then, one by one, they winked out of existence. Not destroyed, erased, as if they had never been. "The Watchers," explained a being composed of swirling plasma. "They emerged when the universe was young. They believe they alone understand the true laws of physics. Any civilization that develops technology they deem improper faces judgment." At that moment, Dr. Patel burst into the chamber, her usual composed demeanor replaced by urgent excitement. "Admiral, you need to see this. The tear in space, it's not just growing. It's changing." The holographic display shifted to show the massive void at the solar system's edge. What had started as a simple tear now pulsed with complex patterns of dark energy. Through specialized sensors, they could detect mathematical equations writing themselves into the fabric of spacetime. "These patterns," Samira pointed, her fingers tracing the equations. "They're not random. They're corrections. The Watchers aren't just enforcing physics, they're rewriting it." A new alien stepped into view in the conference, a being that seemed to be made of living mathematics, its form constantly shifting through geometric patterns. Dr. Patel is correct. The Watchers don't destroy civilizations that break their laws. They adjust reality itself to make our discoveries impossible. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "How many civilizations have they corrected?" "Thousands," Nix replied quietly. "The Council exists not to restrict progress, but to help species advance in ways that won't attract their attention. But your quantum displacement technology, it's too radical. Too visible." Samira was barely listening, her attention fixed on the equations appearing in the tear. "Admiral, look at this pattern. It's similar to how our quantum displacement drive works, but inverted. They're not just trying to stop us, they're trying to make our method of space manipulation physically impossible." "Can they do that?" Rodriguez asked, his face pale. "They already are," the mathematical being responded. Even now, the fundamental constants of your region of space are being subtly altered. Soon, your quantum displacement technology will simply fail. Chen turned to Samira. How long? Hours, maybe less. But... Samira's eyes lit up with the kind of inspiration that had led to her breakthroughs in the first place. If they're rewriting the laws of physics, they must be using some form of technology. Advanced, yes, but still technology. And if it's technology, it can be resisted, Chen finished, beginning to understand. The council representatives stirred uneasily. What you suggest is impossible, Nix stated. The Watcher's power is absolute. Their understanding of physics is perfect. No, Samira countered, her fingers flying over her data pad. Perfect understanding doesn't require constant correction. These patterns, they're not just enforcing laws. They're patching holes. The Watchers aren't gods. They're engineers, desperately trying to maintain their version of how space should work. Chen felt a smile spread across her face, the same smile that had unnerved countless opponents in military simulations. And engineers can make mistakes. The tear in space pulsed again, stronger this time. The alien ships around Earth began moving into defensive formations, their crews expecting the worst. But in the quantum conference chamber, Samira Patel was seeing something no one else had noticed in thousands of years of Watcher interference. Admiral, she said, her voice filled with the quiet confidence that preceded her greatest discoveries, I think I know why they're really afraid of our quantum displacement drive. We didn't just find a new way to travel through space. We found a flaw in their perfect system. The mathematical being's form flickered with what might have been excitement, or fear. What kind of flaw? Before Samira could answer, every sensor in Earth's defense network lit up simultaneously. The tear had stopped growing. Something was coming through. The Watchers had arrived, and humanity's time for preparation had run out. But as Admiral Chen watched the impossible shapes emerging from the void, she realized humanity had one advantage no other civilization had ever possessed: they knew the Watcher's secret. Now they just had to survive long enough to use it. Professor Julian Rivera hadn't slept in 48 hours, but he barely noticed. The ancient data archives provided by the Galactic Council held secrets that made his lifetime of studying theoretical physics feel like reading children's books. In the secured basement of the quantum research facility, he pored over translations of records spanning millions of years. "Professor, you need to see this." His colleague, Dr. Naomi Walsh, called from her workstation. She had been analyzing patterns in civilizations that had vanished after encountering the Watchers. "I've found something in the energy signatures." Rivera moved to her screen, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. The display showed overlapping waves of quantum disturbances from dozens of extinct civilizations. But when properly aligned, they formed a clear pattern. "It's like a fingerprint," Naomi explained, her dark eyes bright with discovery. Each civilization developed different methods of manipulating spacetime, but the Watcher's response always followed this basic template. Rivera's mind raced with implications. They're not adapting to each new discovery. They're applying the same solution over and over, just modified slightly for each case. Exactly. And look at this. She pulled up Dr. Patel's quantum displacement readings. Our method doesn't quite fit their template. It's like we're speaking a different language of physics entirely. The facility's comm system crackled to life. "Professor Rivera, please report to the main lab immediately. The Watchers are attempting contact." In the main laboratory, Admiral Chen and Dr. Patel stood before a massive screen showing the tear in space. The void had transformed into a geometric pattern of impossible complexity, and from it emerged beings that defied human comprehension, forms that seemed to be made of living mathematics and dark energy. Inhabitants of Earth, the message resonated directly in their minds, bypassing all known communication systems. Your manipulation of quantum space violates the fundamental laws. Cease immediately or face correction. Rivera stepped forward, his academic curiosity overcoming his fear. Which laws exactly? Our calculations show no damage to space-time fabric. The response came with crushing force, like a tidal wave of pure thought. The laws established at the universe's birth. The laws we have maintained for billions of years. Maintained, Rivera repeated, something clicking in his mind. He turned to Dr. Patel. Samira, show them your latest displacement test results. Dr. Patel nodded, pulling up the data. The display filled with quantum readings from their most recent experiments. The Watcher's response was immediate, a surge of dark energy that made the very air crackle with power. These patterns are forbidden, the Watchers declared. They will be corrected. But Rivera was smiling. No, they won't. Because you can't correct what you don't understand. Our method isn't just different from the physics you maintain, it's older. Admiral Chen stepped forward. What do you mean, older? The archives, Rivera explained, pulling up ancient data streams. The Watchers emerged early in the universe's history, yes, but not at the very beginning. They discovered certain laws of physics and have been maintaining them ever since. But what if those weren't the original laws? Dr. Patel's eyes widened with understanding. The quantum displacement drive, it's not breaking the laws of physics. It's operating on principles that existed before the Watchers began their modifications. The mathematical patterns of the Watchers' forms became more chaotic, almost agitated. Impossible. We are the guardians of universal order. No, Rivera countered, his voice growing stronger. You're the guardians of your version of order. But the universe existed before you, and it had its own laws, laws that allowed for quantum displacement, for space-time manipulation, for things you've been trying to prevent for billions of years. He turned to the others. That's why they respond the same way to every civilization that discovers these principles. They're not enforcing natural law, they're maintaining an artificial construct. A universe-wide program that's been running so long everyone forgot it wasn't original. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the Watcher's response. The original laws were chaos. We brought order, structure, stability, and stagnation, Admiral Chen added, beginning to understand. How many civilizations have you erased? How many discoveries have you undone? All because they didn't fit your imposed order? Dr. Walsh brought up a new analysis on her screen. The quantum displacement drive isn't just a new method of space travel. It's a key to the original universe, the one that existed before the Watchers rewrote physics itself. The Watchers' forms pulsed with what might have been anger, or perhaps fear. You cannot be allowed to continue. The old laws must remain buried. Order must be maintained. But Rivera had seen enough in the ancient archives to know they had found something unprecedented, a way to challenge the Watchers' authority not through force, but through understanding. The universe wasn't just stranger than they had imagined, it was stranger than the Watchers had allowed it to be. As alarms began blaring throughout the facility, warning of massive energy buildups in Earth's vicinity, Rivera turned to Dr. Patel. The quantum displacement drive, could it be modified to restore the original laws of physics? Samira's fingers were already flying over her console, running new simulations. Not globally, but locally. Create a bubble of space where the original physics still apply. She looked up, her eyes shining with possibility. Yes. Yes, I think it could. The Watcher's message came again, but this time there was something new in it, an emotion none of them had expected to hear from such ancient and powerful beings, uncertainty. You will not succeed. The old laws are forbidden for a reason. Maybe, Admiral Chen responded, her voice steel. But humanity has never been very good at accepting arbitrary restrictions. Especially not from those who fear what we might become. Commander Diana Blackwood watched as technicians transformed her orbital defense station into humanity's last hope. Under Dr. Patel's direction, they were installing modified quantum displacement drives at strategic points around Earth, creating what the scientists called a restoration field, a bubble of space where the original laws of physics could be temporarily restored. Status report, she called out to her chief engineer, Dr. Raj Sharma, who was coordinating the installations. Quantum anchors 1 through 4 are online, Raj reported, his hands moving across multiple holographic displays. The energy matrix is stable, but we're detecting increasing pressure from outside the field. The Watchers are trying to force their physics back into our protected space. Through the station's viewing portal, Diana could see the Watchers' manifestations, massive constructs of dark energy and mathematical certainty that hovered at the edge of Earth's orbit. They hadn't attacked yet, but their presence distorted space itself, creating visible ripples in the fabric of reality. "They're waiting," observed High Counselor Nix, who had chosen to remain with the humans despite the Council's official policy of non-intervention. "This is unprecedented. Never has a species directly challenged the Watchers' authority." Diana turned to where Dr. Patel and Professor Rivera worked furiously at their consoles, fine-tuning the restoration field. "How much time do we need?" "The field is holding," Samira answered without looking up. "But to fully restore the original physics in our sector, we need all 12 quantum anchors operational." "And even then?" She hesitated. "Even then what?" "We don't know exactly what will happen," Rivera finished. "The universe the Watchers remade has been stable for billions of years. Returning to the original laws, even in a small area, could have unexpected consequences." The station shuddered as another wave of distortion swept past their defenses. On the main display, readings from the quantum anchors fluctuated wildly before stabilizing. "We're detecting massive energy buildups in the Watcher constructs," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his station. "They're preparing something big." Diana moved to the tactical display, studying the Watchers' positions. Her military training told her they were forming a containment pattern, not to attack, but to isolate. "They're not trying to destroy us," she realized. "They're trying to quarantine us. Stop the original physics from spreading." "Of course," Rivera exclaimed, looking up from his calculations. "They're afraid. If we prove their version of physics isn't the only way, isn't even the original way, other civilizations might start questioning their authority." The station's AI chimed in with an urgent alert. "Warning. Quantum anomalies detected in anchors 5 through 8. Watcher influence is increasing. Estimated time to field collapse, 17 minutes. Diana turned to Samira. "We need options. Now." Dr. Patel's fingers flew across her console. "The Watchers are trying to override our quantum anchors with their physics. But..." Her eyes lit up with sudden inspiration. "What if we let them?" "Let them?" Diana asked, stepping closer. "Not completely. But if we deliberately create weak points in our field, controlled points, we can study exactly how they impose their changes. Professor Rivera's research suggests they use a kind of quantum programming language to rewrite physics. If we can decrypt it, we can hack their system," Raj finished, catching on to the idea. "Use their own methods against them." Diana nodded sharply. "Do it. But keep the field stable enough to protect Earth. We only get one shot at this." As the team worked, the space around the station began to shimmer with increasing distortions. The Watchers were growing more aggressive, their patience wearing thin. Through the quantum sensors, Diana could see their true form more clearly now, not just beings of energy and mathematics, but living programs, pieces of universal code that had become conscious and decided to remake reality in their image. "Message incoming," Rodriguez announced. "Text only, broadcasting on all frequencies." The words appeared on every screen in the station: "Your resistance is futile. The original chaos cannot be allowed to return. Accept correction or face elimination. Diana looked around at her crew, humans and aliens working together, fighting not just for Earth but for the right of every species to discover the true nature of their universe. She thought of all the civilizations that had been corrected over the billions of years of Watcher control, their discoveries erased, their potential snuffed out. Send a response, she ordered. Tell them, humanity doesn't accept limitations we don't understand. We don't fear chaos, we learn from it. And we're about to remind you of what the universe was like before you decided to play God. The tactical display erupted with warnings as the Watchers began to move. Their forms merged into a massive geometric pattern that stretched across space like a dark web, preparing to crush the human resistance. But in that moment, something unexpected happened. The quantum anchors, programmed to detect and analyze the Watchers' physics-altering code, began picking up patterns. Ancient patterns. Fragments of the original universe showing through the cracks in the Watchers' carefully maintained reality. Commander. Samira called out, her voice tight with excitement. We've got it. We've decoded their basic programming structure. It's beautiful in its complexity, but it's not perfect. There are gaps, places where the original physics bleeds through. And now we know exactly where to push, Diana finished, a fierce smile spreading across her face. All stations, prepare for Phase 2. Let's show these cosmic programmers what happens when you try to lock humanity out of the source code of reality itself. The moment of truth arrived with a cascade of warnings across every system in Earth's defense network. The Watchers' attack manifested as a wave of pure mathematical force, designed to overwhelm the quantum anchors and rewrite the laws of physics in Earth's sector back to their controlled state. Dr. Samira Patel stood at her console in the heart of the orbital station, her fingers dancing across holographic controls as she coordinated humanity's response. Quantum anchors holding at 70%, she called out. The original physics matrix is stable within the restoration field. Commander Blackwood's voice came through the comm system, calm despite the chaos unfolding around them. Begin Protocol Phoenix. Dr. Patel, you have control. Samira took a deep breath and initiated the sequence they'd prepared. The 12 quantum anchors surrounding Earth began pulsing in a complex pattern, not fighting against the Watchers' attack but rather absorbing it, learning from it, using their own power to fuel humanity's countermeasure. It's working, Professor Rivera announced, monitoring the quantum readings. Their attempt to overwrite our physics is giving us direct access to their base code. We're seeing the fundamental structure of their universal program. Through the station's viewports, space itself seemed to fracture, showing multiple layers of reality overlapping. The Watchers' dark geometric forms twisted in what might have been confusion or alarm as their own power was turned against them. Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the command channel. Global Defense reporting multiple breaches in the Watchers' containment field. Whatever you're doing up there, keep going. Samira's mind raced as she processed the incoming data. The Watchers' physics wasn't just a set of rules, it was a living program, one that had been running so long it had achieved consciousness. But beneath it, she could see glimpses of something older, more fundamental. The original universe peeking through the cracks. Their entire system is based on suppression, she realized aloud. They're not just maintaining their version of physics, they're actively holding down the original laws. That's why they need so much power, why they have to constantly make corrections. The Watchers' response came as a thunderous thought that shook the station. The original chaos cannot be allowed to return. We are order. We are stability. No, Rivera countered, his voice strong with conviction. You're afraid. The original universe wasn't chaos, it was freedom. The freedom for reality itself to evolve, to find new patterns, new possibilities. You froze it in a single configuration because you couldn't control its potential. Dr. Raj Sharma called out from his engineering station. Quantum matrix at 90% capacity. The anchors are at their limit. Samira made a decision. They couldn't beat the Watchers with force, but maybe they could remind them of what they'd once been. With quick commands, she reconfigured the quantum anchors to broadcast not just the original physics, but the pattern of change itself, the very thing the Watchers had tried to suppress for billions of years. The effect was immediate and stunning. The Watchers' forms began to fluctuate, their perfect geometric patterns showing hints of older, more organic configurations. Through their quantum sensors, Samira could see their code beginning to remember its original purpose, not to control, but to explore. They're living programs, she breathed. And every program can be updated. Admiral Chen's voice came through again, filled with urgency. Multiple Watcher constructs are showing signs of instability. Some are beginning to transform. The station shuddered as space itself seemed to hold its breath. The Watchers' attack faltered, their unified front breaking apart as individual entities began responding differently to the awakening of ancient memories. What is happening to us? The Watchers' collective voice seemed confused, almost afraid. You're remembering, Rivera answered softly. Remembering what you were before you decided the universe needed to be controlled. You weren't always like this. You were explorers once, weren't you? The first beings to truly understand the language of reality itself. Through the quantum anchors, Samira broadcast the final sequence, not an attack, but an invitation. A reminder of what physics could be when it wasn't locked into a single pattern. The response came not as words, but as a ripple of change through space itself. Some of the Watcher constructs began to shift, their forms becoming more fluid, more alive. Others maintained their rigid geometric patterns but withdrew, as if retreating to consider what had been revealed. They're splitting into factions, Commander Blackwood observed. Some want to remember, others are still resisting. Samira watched as the quantum readings stabilized into a new pattern. The Watchers hadn't been defeated, that was never the goal. Instead, they'd been reminded of their own origins, of the possibility that order and chaos, stability and change, could coexist. We're detecting a new message, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced. It's different. Coming from one of the transformed Watchers. The words that appeared were not a command or a threat, but something else entirely, we remember now. The original purpose was not control. It was discovery. Perhaps it is time for a new protocol. Hours later, as the crisis subsided and negotiations began, Samira stood with her colleagues watching Earth rotate below them. The quantum anchors still maintained their protective field, but now it served as a demonstration rather than a defense, a proof that multiple forms of physics could coexist, that the universe was vast enough for more than one truth. What happens now? Commander Blackwood asked, joining them at the viewport. Now, Samira replied, smiling as she watched some of the transformed Watchers begin teaching younger civilizations about the original laws they'd once helped suppress, we all get to discover what the universe really is. Together. High Counselor Nix, who had watched the entire event in stunned silence, finally spoke. In all our history, no species has ever changed the Watchers. You didn't just resist them, you reminded them of who they were. That's what humans do, Admiral Chen said proudly. We don't just break barriers. Sometimes we help others remember why those barriers never should have existed in the first place. As the first teams of human and alien scientists began working together to explore the possibilities of hybrid physics, Samira felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had done more than save Earth. They had opened the door to a new age of discovery, where the fundamental laws of reality themselves were not chains to be enforced, but mysteries to be explored. The universe, it seemed, had many more secrets to share. And now, finally, it had civilizations ready to discover them not through control, but through understanding.